Hey everyone, this is Fabriello and welcome back. Today I decided that I cannot even talk. It's finally time for a new video, and it's not going to be a pickup since I already done one for previous months. Check it out if you're curious. But it's neither a game discussion video, since I still need to finish Treasure Coast Steel 2, even though I'm close to the end and I'm enjoying every single second of that game. It's fantastic, and playing it made me. I was thinking how much I've been enjoying this game for this past 2 weeks, 3 weeks that I've been playing it, and also made me think about Treasure Coast Steel 1, since I really like that, the whole Legend of Heroes series, and RPGs in general. So yeah, came back to all like the origin of humanity basically. I'm just like on a trip today, but all jokes aside, I was really thinking how much I like RPGs, and I wanted to kind of talk about it, how actually I got into RPGs. Now I know there were videos and a sort of chains of video responses on like why people like RPGs, why it's our favorite genre for us RPG players, and I missed that. So this is kind of a slightly different approach to that. I hope it's okay. I think so. I mean, I can do whatever I want to my channel, and basically I'm going to talk about the 3 games that I played when I was very young that were RPGs, and especially then the specific game that actually was the spark that ignited all this passion for JRPGs. And it's something of a progression, since yesterday evening I was thinking about it, and it's actually made me realize that I started playing RPG when I was extremely young, but not the way you would think. Because let me explain, of course. As you probably know or not, I'm telling you now, I'm a European gamer, and being a European RPG fan, especially during the late 80s, early 90s, was not easy, because we basically had nothing. On the NES, which was my first system, for what I know, we didn't have RPGs. I mean, we didn't have Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, nothing like that. On the Super Nintendo, I think maybe we started to get some here and there, like one every 50,000 games was an RPG, but not the big ones. We didn't have Final Fantasy 2 and 3, 4 and 6, of course, or we didn't have Chrono Trigger, we didn't have Breath of Fire 1 and 2, all the great RPGs just were not available. I think I was thinking of some that we might have. I'm not sure about the Lufia games. Maybe I know Terranigma was released in Europe, but I didn't know about it back then. So, and I'm not sure about the other two of the. It's called the Quintet trilogy, I think. I don't remember. I think Illusion of Gaia was released in Europe. Secret of Mana was released. So there were some, now that I think about it, but not as much as North America, because of course I'm comparing our market with the North American one, because it doesn't make any sense to compare it with Japan, where they had 600 games for one that we might actually got here. It's only with the PlayStation 1 that we start to get some sort of same ratio with games, even though we still missed a lot of the big stuff. Like, we didn't have Chrono Trigger, we didn't have Dragon Quest VII, we didn't have what's the big one? The Xenogears. And naturally, I'm talking for what I know from my own market, which I'm from Italy, so maybe in other parts of Europe was different, but I don't think so. I think the European market was considered as a big one, even though there might be some difference here and there that I am not aware of. So you might correct me if I'm considered like, what they're talking about. Of course, in Latvia we had Xenogears. No offense with the people of Latvia, of course. But my point is that up until the PlayStation 2 days, we always had some sort of gap with North America, and a ginormous gap with Japan in terms of release of JRPGs in particular, because that's what I'm talking about, JRPGs, which are my favorite games. Western RPGs are completely different stuff, because I'm not really into that, and it makes sense now thinking about it. Even though I don't mind them, I play some of them, but there will never be to me, even comparable with JRPGs. So, and it's interesting that the way I started with RPGs, it's really not what you would expect. The way I talk about it, I'm all about consoles, I'm all about JRPGs, and all of that. And it's curious to think that the first, very, very first RPG that I played was on PC, and it was a Western RPG. It's like, what the hell? Upside down. But I don't remember how I got into possession of this game, but the first RPG I ever played was this thing called Ultima 6, The False Prophet. Yeah, Ultima. Because, of course, as I said before, I was talking mainly about JRPGs, because that's my genre, but naturally we had also to consider the Western RPGs, and those were more available into Europeans and I suppose North American territories. And Ultima, it's a very, very, very famous series, even though now it's been forgotten because it's been ages since an Ultima game. But I vividly remember hating the crap out of Ultima 6. I really, really didn't enjoy my time, so that's not a good start for RPGs. But it kind of makes sense now that I think about it, because it's a Western RPG, it's an open world game, all things that I don't like very much. But it's not that I'm disliking the game just for ideas that I have now. I vividly remember not enjoying my time yesterday, back then, playing Ultima 6, because I liked the idea very much of like the role-playing aspect, because I really always really enjoy that, but I really didn't like the execution of that. So that's, yeah, I had no idea where I was supposed to go. I had no idea what I was supposed to do. It was very confusing. It was open world, so I always ended up somewhere where I'm not supposed to without them telling you, because I was very young. I was probably like 5 years old when I played that game. I couldn't understand it very well. And I don't think Ultima is the most friendly game as I like to have as a starter RPGs. I don't think it's a good idea. But I remember that I was very intrigued with the whole concept of the role-playing game, despite Ultima's effort to make me dislike it. I was more than willing to give the whole idea and genre a try. Say, yeah, I want to play more RPGs. What can I find on consoles? Since consoles have always been my favorite go-to game, and I know that PC gamers out there are probably like, what are you talking about? PC is the only way. PC is better all the way. You're probably right, but personally, I never really enjoyed PC gaming because I never had decent enough PC to keep up with the market. I always have it, but to me it was the not even secondary system. So I always thought about my consoles first, then all the consoles, and then PC. But I always have one. I always have a mediocre gaming PC, so it's always there. But PC RPGs equals Western RPGs 99% of the cases, and that was not my bread and butter. I never really liked it. But at the same time, while I was between, now I was trying to think of my age back then, but I cannot remember. It's been so long ago. Let's say when I recently got a Super Nintendo. Back in the day when, as you know, there was the 16-bit wars between Nintendo and Sega fans, between the Super Nintendo and the Genesis. Obviously, I was one of the Nintendo fanboys, so like most of my friends, most of us had Super Nintendos or Super Nintendos in particular, so we always bashed Sega, saying, oh, Sega is a second-rate company, the Genesis is complete garbage compared to Super Nintendo, blah blah blah. But then, I remember very well, one day, one of my friends actually dared betray the Church of Nintendo and moved to Sega, and he actually got a Genesis. So at first I was again like that. What's wrong with you, man? You know, Nintendo has the answer. So Sega, it's completely useless. There are no games. And all of this while back then I didn't read gaming magazines because I didn't even know if we had some. So it was a very, very different age. But talking about him, I remember one day going to his place and we started playing the Genesis, and I remember that I enjoyed it actually. I was like, no, the Sega, it's not bad actually. There is potential here. So, but the big thing is that one day I went to his place and I don't remember if he bought it or rented a game called Phantasy Star 2. Now, that is the game that actually started my whole thing with JRPGs, because before that, as I said, my only experience with role-playing game was Ultima, and I didn't like it. Then started trying this JRPG because I could see it was very different in the way it plays, combat. It was not open world, all of that. It made much more sense. It was much easier to play, and of course, a major plus for the game, the science fiction, or I say science fantasy. Two, it's more on the science fiction side. So the sci-fi setting of Phantasy Star 2 completely captured me, because Ultima was obviously, and it's not a negative, but it was obviously the fantasy world, so the medieval setting, which is fine, I like that, but I always prefer sci-fi over fantasy, if I have to be completely honest, and to see like a sci-fi-ish turn-based game, the role-playing, I was completely stuck. I love the turn-based combat. That was actually what triggered me to turn-based RPG. I thought it was so much better than the weird combat system in Ultima. I completely fell in love with this. I was like, oh boy, this is great. I love this kind of game. Where can I find this on the Super Nintendo? Damn it. Then I discovered the Super Nintendo didn't have those games. I was like, for crying out loud, Nintendo, I was trying to defend you, and now you don't have the games I want? Because I remember that up until the PlayStation 1, if someone would have asked me my favorite game, I would probably have said Mega Man X. But then I always had this thing with Phantasy Star 2 in the back of my mind. Just like, I really want to play more games like that, because I had a major grand time with that style. Compared, like, add the fact that another time this friend also rented Phantasy Star 4, and that game blew me away. I was like, oh my frigging god, why didn't I get the Genesis instead of the stupid useless Super Nintendo that doesn't have Phantasy Star? There's a reason why I love Phantasy Star 4 so much. But at the same time, I still also remember that another friend of mine, actually, let me backtrack a minute here. At the same time, after I experienced the Genesis, Phantasy Star, and other games, that also helped me to be more open-minded towards other companies, other gaming system. So it wasn't just Nintendo all the time. I was more like, well, I love Nintendo. It's my first console. I love the Super Nintendo. It's fantastic. But it would be nice to have different systems to see what the competition has to offer. So I'm still very grateful to Phantasy Star 2 and the Genesis, because I believe it made me a better gamer in that way. It also opened my mind that it's good to be ready to accept different things, not just what you have and what you prefer. I mean, be open-minded people, don't be just mindless fanboys. That's the message here. But the thing is, because of how much I enjoyed the Genesis, I wanted the Sega console, but my parents were like, dream on. But after much perseverance, I was able to convince them to get me a Game Gear. So I never had the Game Boy, actually. I passed to moved directly to the Game Gear. And I remember that I really enjoyed it, even though I didn't have many games, unfortunately, because it was already a miracle to buy an NES, Super NES game here and there. Buying 2 games, 3 games per time was extremely difficult. So I remember that I had maybe 5 to 7 games. At one point, I'm well sure that I never reached 10 games for the Game Gear, because after a while I kind of lost interest in it, but it had some neat stuff. And because of the Game Gear, that's also the first experience that I had in portable RPGs, which it's now basically my preferred way to play my RPGs. That's insane to think about it. But again, just like Phantasy Star, interesting enough, it's a game that I didn't own. A friend of mine had it. I borrowed it from him, and I played just for a couple of days. It didn't have this lasting impact like Phantasy Star, but it's interesting. As I said, it's how I started to get into portable RPGs, which is interesting. And this game is Crystal Warriors on the Game Gear, since we're talking about it. And it's a sort of strategy RPG for what I can remember. I mean, I barely remember it because I played it like a couple of days, 10, not 10, at least 15 years ago. No, even more now. It's probably like 1990 something, maybe 20 years ago or something like that. But anyways, I cannot remember these things too well. I mean, it was so long ago, but I vividly remember the game and that I like it, but I wasn't impressed with it because it's portable gaming has come a long way. Let's say that. I mean, playing the Game Boy or the Game Gear, it's not like playing the Vita. For example, the games were inferior for obvious reasons, and back then when I was very young, I wasn't as patient and as I am today. So I was like, oh, the graphics are not that great, blah, 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 all this nonsense. But that's the important thing with Crystal Warriors, that it's actually how I started with portable RPGs. But it's interesting at the same time that after the Game Gear, I had a Game Boy Color for Pokemon. So yes, I played Pokemon. I never talked about it because I'm not interested anymore, but I played Pokemon Red and played a lot of it. Really a lot. And especially because also friends of mine had it and we played a lot together, like battling each other, and it was great. And I was pretty proud of myself. My team was very strong, actually. I was able to fight all my friends, and most of the time I actually was victorious. But I never really explored the Game Boy Color because at the time I was too busy with the PlayStation 1, and that's really the, you may say, like the halfway point. It's the PlayStation 1, it's basically the console that changed everything for me, because up until then I really liked video gaming, but I wasn't obsessed with it yet. I wasn't like, this is my main hobby. It kind of was, but I wasn't yet fanatical with it. I wasn't like, I freaking love video gaming. The PlayStation 1 changed that, and that's because we started to get all the RPGs and also other games, because it's not that I played RPGs 24/7. Now, most of the times, because I don't play that much, I don't have all that free time, and now since I don't have much time, I prefer playing the games that I prefer, and that's RPGs mainly. But I also try to vary here and there. Back then, I had much more time by my hands, and I played much more games. And with the PlayStation 1, I was introduced much more to the JRPGs, to the survival horror, and all this kind of stuff, and boy, did I enjoy my time. And it's not a coincidence that I still think that the 32-bit generation, so PlayStation 1, Sega Saturn, N64, those years, are still like the golden age of video gaming to me, because it was also like immediately before internet, so things were still different and there was still a magic about video gaming back then, which it's not. I'm not saying that today it's bad, of course. I'm just saying that I kind of miss those days in a way, but life goes on. So, but I'm really glad that I was able to fully experience those years that to me are completely different now, in better. Of course, it's great to have the internet and everything, but it also took things away from me. But that's a totally different story for another video. And we're getting to an important thing here with the PlayStation 1. As I said, this is the system that not only made me a 100%, even more, true gamer in a way, but it's also the system that completely and again 150,000% made me a JRPG lover, to say, no, this is my favorite genre, and I never looked back from then. And it wasn't Final Fantasy VII, of course. if you were thinking about that, you're wrong. I played this and other games before Final Fantasy VII, and Final Fantasy VII, it's not my favorite RPGs, as you might know. I'm not a fan of that game. But the game was none other than Breath of Fire 3. Now, since if you don't remember, that game was released the same year as Final Fantasy VII, among others, but of course, like all these amazing games, it was overshadowed by Final Fantasy VII. So I never heard of Breath of Fire before 3. I played this game and I knew from the first second that this game was special, and the brain exploded from the back of my head when I was playing that. I mean, it has a really, really interesting and deep story, great, unforgettable characters, phenomenal graphics, a good soundtrack. It's the thing. Breath of Fire is not very renowned for its soundtrack, but it was good in 3. And like the gameplay and combat was amazing with like the dragon transformation. That really was something that captured my imagination. I'm able to transform into a dragon. That's fucking awesome, because everybody likes dragons. But it was the storyline I really appreciated the more I played it in time, because it's a very, like most Breath of Fire games, it's a very deep and dark storyline. Maybe it's not as dark as 2, but there are really crazy aspects here and there. And the interesting thing about Breath of Fire 3 that it also questions the gray areas of morality, which is something that games don't usually do. It's not as common as just a simple good versus evil. Breath of Fire also goes into the middle. That's a very interesting thing about that series, and it has these amazing characters. And thanks to Breath of Fire 3, I was like, now these are the games I want to play. And after that, I was introduced to games such as Wild Arms, Parasite Eve 2, since we didn't have one, Legend of Dragoon, the Final Fantasies as well. All these great, timeless RPGs that really had something magical and were what really made me. I mean, they had such a deep impact on me. Like games like Breath of Fire 3, Breath of Fire 4 was freaking phenomenal. I loved that game. I played on both PC and PlayStation 1. Legend of Dragoon, by God, I love that game. So remember, PlayStation is not just about the Final Fantasies. And then I moved to the Xbox, where there were no JRPGs because I wanted to play Halo. And I always regretted that choice because the PlayStation 2 is amazing for RPGs. What was I thinking? But anyways, so this was a kind of a short video that I wanted to explain why I like RPGs so much. And rather than that, I really want to talk about the games that progressively, in different ways, brought me to become a massive RPG fan. And it's through pleasant, unpleasant experiences from Phantasy Star 2 and Ultima 6, from curious experiences by Crystal Warriors that opened the door from Handle Gaming, since why I bought the Xbox, I don't remember it was the same times, but still, I also got into the DS and Game Boy Advance, which are phenomenal for portable gaming and portable RPGs. And the rest is history in a way. I mean, I still absolutely love portable gaming now with the Vita. Soon, I think I will be able finally to get a 3DS. That's the big thing that's missing for my collection at the moment. And yeah, and RPGs have been a major part of my gaming life since the PlayStation 1 day in particular. I mean, because before I never really had chances to play them, not that often, but I knew from the first moment, even from the unpleasantness of Ultima 6, I mean, I want to explore this genre more, even though not in this format, but I like where this is going, in a weird way. I mean, I really didn't like the combat, I didn't like the freedom of exploration, I like the linearity of JRPGs in a way, because it's I found open world so distracting. So one of the reasons why I'm not really in a rush to buy Final Fantasy 15, even though I will, of course. Um, People say it's the best game of all time, basically, like for all games. But apparently, all jokes aside, people is very, very happy with the results, and I'm happy for Square Enix if the game is good. So eventually, I will get it, but I'm not in a rush to get it. What was I talking about? Final Fantasy 15 distracting me. But yes, want to still go back to Ultima 6 because even though I didn't like my time with it, I knew that if done better, as Phantasy Star did for me, this was the genre that I really want to explore. I mean, I love other genres in video games, of course. Like, I like some sort of first-person shooters, especially the unrealistic ones. Like, I friggin' love the id Software ones. I absolutely adore the Bioshocks, if you want to go more modern. I love the Halo. Halo, it's the reason why I bought the Xbox, even though I regretted my decision, because all the games I wanted were on the PlayStation 2, the RPGs, the survival horror. Even though there were some, I mean, thank God for the Xbox, I was able to play phenomenal games such as Panzer Dragoon Orta, Knights of the Old Republic, that originally was exclusive for the Xbox. And what else? Well, there was a curious Lord of the Rings RPG on the Xbox. It wasn't bad, actually. It was interesting. What was it called? Like the Third Age, I think. Do you remember that game? But I think it was also on other systems. But also, like as I said, the survival horror. And of course, on the PlayStation, I was able to play hybrid between my two of my favorite genre, like Parasite Eve, Kudelka. Those kind of games were phenomenal. So. But it's especially, I have to say, a big thank you to Breath of Fire 3, because it's no mystery. I mean, it's not a coincidence that Breath of Fire is my favorite RPG series, and will always be, for two reasons. One, it is a phenomenal RPG series, first and foremost. But two, it has such an impact on me. I mean, those storylines, those characters, those will always stay with me. And afterwards, I was able to play all the Breath of Fire games, starting with 4, which is a fantastic game, as I said. It has a great story, the best combat system of the series. It was such a good game. Then I played Breath of Fire 2 and 1 and 2, which are amazing Super Nintendo RPGs. Breath of Fire 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. It's unbelievable how good that game is. To me, it's as good as Final Fantasy VI, basically, on the Super Nintendo. I love Breath of Fire 5 when I was able to play it. Even though the whole world hates that game for some reasons, I thought it was a great game. But maybe because I'm such a Breath of Fire fanboy. But Breath of Fire 3 is what I really, really, really hold responsible for this RPG sickness. Because I love those crazy worlds in the Breath of Fire universe. I love those characters. Those stories were incredible. So... And that was what I really wanted out of the game, those great experiences that, with also others, of course, as I say, like the Final Fantasies, Legend of Dragoon, and so on, I was able to get even, and sometimes more and more, like, deeper storylines. We've come a long way from RPGs, and now the circle is complete with the Legend of Heroes series, with these amazing interconnected stories. I mean... fantastic games. So that's it. I can go on forever with this. I'm already started to lose focus. So this is just a kind of a different video from usual. I wanted to make something between a game discussion and the previous pickups video. So I hope you find it interesting. It's just something to know about me as a gamer, since I remember doing that really cool podcast with the Funny Nerd. We also talked about RPGs and, like, why do we still like JRPGs? And I wanted to elaborate a bit more on that. Just like, what are the games responsible for my addiction to RPGs and JRPGs in particular? So that's about it. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. I hope to see you soon. It depends on how fast I manage to beat Legend of Trails of Cold Steel 2. But with that said... thanks so much for watching. Like always, I'll see you next time. Take care.